In 2026, thousands of Canadian property owners could be hit with penalties up to 300% of the tax they owe, not because they sold a house, not because they made millions, but simply because their home sat empty for 1 year. Yes, you heard that right. In some cases, the fine for failing to file the right form is actually 3 times the tax itself. And here's the scary part. Many owners don't even realize they've triggered it until the notice arrives. This isn't just about foreign investors or luxury mansions in Vancouver or Toronto. Regular Canadians, people who inherited property, moved for work, or left a home vacant during renovations, are getting caught in what many are calling the 1-year trap. A missed filing, a misunderstood exemption. A simple assumption that I don't owe anything can turn into a massive penalty. So how does this happen? Who is really at risk? And more importantly, how do you make sure it's not you? Stay with me. Number 1. Housing crisis pressure. Across Canada in 2026, the housing market is still under intense pressure. Home prices in major cities remain far above average income levels. Rental vacancy rates are tight, and first-time buyers are struggling just to enter the market. When thousands of homes sit empty while families compete for limited space, governments step in. Studies for national housing agencies consistently show that restricted supply pushes prices higher. Even a small percentage of unused properties can tighten availability in already stressed markets. From a policy standpoint, an empty home isn't just private property. It represents lost housing opportunity in a country facing a serious affordability challenge. Because of this imbalance, policymakers argue that vacancy taxes are meant to push unused properties back into circulation. The idea is simple. If holding a home empty becomes expensive, owners are more likely to rent it out or sell it. Cities like Toronto and Vancouver have already reported increased rental listings after vacancy measures were introduced. Whether you agree with the policy or not, the intention is clear: discourage underuse and increase supply. That's why enforcement has become stricter, and why penalties for noncompliance can be so severe. For homeowners, this means awareness is everything. If you leave a property vacant for renovations, relocation, inheritance issues, or personal reasons, you must understand the reporting rules. Keep records of occupancy days, know your exemptions, and never assume you're automatically excluded. In today's housing climate, an empty property is no longer invisible. It's monitored, reported, and potentially taxed. If this surprised you, tell me, should empty homes face penalties during a housing crisis? And if you value deep research like this, subscribe. It's one click, but helps us keep exposing what others don't. Number 2. Speculative investing crackdown. Over the past decade, speculative real estate investing has quietly reshaped parts of Canada's housing market. Investors purchase properties not to live in or rent out, but to hold and resell later at a higher price. On paper, it's a smart financial move. In reality, when large numbers of homes are treated like financial assets instead of places to live, supply tightens. Economic research consistently shows that when investors hold properties vacant while waiting for appreciation, it creates artificial scarcity. Fewer homes on the market mean higher prices for everyone else. As housing prices climbed rapidly in cities like Toronto and Vancouver, public pressure grew. Governments began to argue that leaving properties empty purely for price growth contributes to instability and affordability problems. Vacancy taxes and strict reporting requirements are designed to discourage this behavior. By increasing the cost of holding unused property, policymakers hope to shift investor behavior toward renting, selling, or developing instead of warehousing homes. The 300% penalty isn't random. It's meant to act as a strong deterrent against ignoring the system entirely. For property owners, the key takeaway is strategy. If you're investing in Canadian real estate, you need a clear occupancy or rental plan from day one. Understand holding costs, reporting deadlines, and compliance rules before assuming you can simply wait for the market to rise. In 2026, passive holding is no longer risk-free. The rules have changed, and ignoring them can turn a profitable investment into an expensive mistake. Do you think holding homes purely for price growth should be penalized? Comment your view below, and if this breakdown helps you think smarter about property, subscribe. It's one click that supports the work behind these videos. Number 3. Foreign ownership target. In recent years, concerns about foreign ownership have played a major role in shaping Canada's housing policies. Lawmakers argue that when non-residents purchase homes and leave them vacant, it reduces available housing stock for people actually living and working in the country. Reports from federal housing agencies have highlighted patterns in certain urban markets where non-resident ownership was concentrated in high-demand areas. Whether the numbers are large or small, the perception that outside capital is influencing local affordability has fueled strong political action. Because of these concerns, the federal government introduced measures like the Underused Housing Tax, specifically targeting certain non-resident and non-citizen owners. The policy requires annual reporting, and failure to file can trigger significant penalties, sometimes far exceeding the tax itself. The goal is twofold: discourage vacant foreign-held properties and collect accurate data on ownership patterns. This is where many people get caught off guard. Even if no tax is owed due to exemptions, the reporting requirement still applies. Missing that filing deadline can activate the so-called one-year trap. For anyone with international ties, dual residency situations, or property held through foreign-controlled corporations, understanding your classification is critical. Don't assume citizenship alone automatically protects you if the ownership structure is complex. Review how the property is titled, confirm residency definitions, and file on time every year. In today's regulatory climate, compliance matters just as much as ownership status. Do you think foreign buyers should face stricter rules on empty homes? Share your perspective below. And if you appreciate research-driven insights like this, subscribe. One click helps us continue uncovering what impacts you. Number 4. Rental supply push. At the heart of this policy is a simple economic principle. When more homes are available to rent, pressure on prices can ease. Canada's rental markets in 2026 remain tight in many cities, with vacancy rates hovering at historically low levels in urban centers. When units sit empty instead of being rented, they are effectively removed from circulation. Housing researchers have long pointed out that even a modest increase in rental supply can stabilize or slow rent growth. That's one of the core arguments behind vacancy taxes: encourage owners to put properties back into active use. Because of this supply imbalance, governments believe financial pressure changes behavior. If leaving a condo empty for a year suddenly triggers reporting requirements and potential penalties, owners are more likely to rent it out long-term. Some municipal data following vacancy tax implementation has shown an increase in declared rental units. While the policy remains debated, the intention is clear: transform and use properties into housing for real people. The 300% penalty is designed to ensure owners take the reporting rules seriously and do not ignore compliance deadlines. For property owners, this means planning ahead. If you're relocating temporarily, renovating, or holding a property between tenants, track occupancy days carefully. Understand how many months a unit must be rented to qualify for exemption. Consider long-term leases instead of leaving a property idle. In today's housing environment, a vacant unit is no longer just a personal choice. It can carry financial consequences. Would you rent out your property to avoid vacancy penalties, or would you keep it empty? Comment your decision below. And if this content helps you stay ahead of the rules, subscribe. One click supports the effort behind every video. Number 5. Revenue strategy. Beyond housing supply, there's another powerful driver behind vacancy taxes: revenue. Governments at both federal and municipal levels argue that funds collected from underused housing can be redirected into affordable housing programs, rental assistance, and community development. In 2026, with infrastructure costs rising and housing initiatives expanding, new revenue streams are politically attractive. When a property sits unused, policymakers frame it as an opportunity to either activate housing supply or generate funds that support broader public needs. From a fiscal perspective, vacancy taxes serve a dual purpose. First, they encourage behavioral change, pushing owners to rent or sell. Second, if compliance fails, penalties can significantly boost public revenue. The 300% penalty for non-filing is particularly impactful because it ensures the system has teeth. Governments rely on self-reporting, so strict fines reinforce accountability. Even if only a fraction of owners are penalized, the amounts collected can be substantial. Critics argue it feels punitive, while supporters claim it levels the playing field during a housing shortage. For homeowners, this reality means understanding that the system is designed to enforce compliance aggressively. Whether you agree with the policy or not, ignoring it is risky. Mark filing deadlines, verify exemption eligibility, and keep documentation organized. Treat vacancy reporting like any other major tax obligation, because in 2026, it absolutely is one. The cost of overlooking it could be far greater than expected. Do you think vacancy taxes are truly about housing, or mostly about revenue? Share your honest opinion below, and if you value in-depth analysis like this, subscribe. One click helps us continue breaking down complex policies clearly. Number 6. Data collection agenda. Behind the headlines about empty homes and penalties, there is another major objective: data. In 2026, governments are increasingly focused on collecting precise information about who owns property, how it's used, and whether it sits vacant. Accurate housing data helps policymakers design future regulations, forecast supply needs, and measure affordability trends. The annual reporting requirement tied to underused housing rules is not just about collecting tax. It's about building a detailed national database of property usage. Because real estate ownership structures can be complex, especially when properties are held through corporations, trusts, or partnerships, authorities rely heavily on self-reporting systems. That's why the filing requirement applies even in cases where no tax is owed. The 300% penalty often kicks in not because someone left a house empty, but because they failed to submit the required form. In many cases, owners assume that if they owe $0, they don't need to file. That assumption is exactly what creates the one-year trap. For property holders, this means compliance must become routine. If your home is owned through a corporation, a family trust, or a shared structure, double-check your obligations. Set calendar reminders well before filing deadlines. Keep documentation proving occupancy, rental agreements, or exemption eligibility. In today's regulatory environment, the paperwork matters just as much as the property itself. The system is designed to track, verify, and penalize non-reporting, even when no tax is due. Were you aware that you might need to file even if you owe nothing? Comment below and share your experience. And if these insights help you avoid costly mistakes, subscribe. One click keeps this research coming. Number 7. Urban planning pressure. Across major Canadian cities, urban planners are under growing pressure to make every square meter count. In dense metropolitan areas, infrastructure like transit systems, schools, hospitals, and utilities are designed based on population usage. When properties remain vacant long-term, they distort planning models. Empty units in high-rise buildings or residential neighborhoods create what some experts call ghost density, buildings that exist physically but don't contribute to community activity or economic flow. As cities invest billions into transit expansions and housing infrastructure, policymakers want to ensure those investments serve active residents. Vacancy taxes are partly justified as a tool to align private property use with broader urban planning goals. If a condo tower sits partially empty while the surrounding area struggles with rental shortages, the system appears inefficient. By introducing reporting rules and strict penalties, governments push owners to either activate the unit or face financial consequences. The 300% fine reinforces that this isn't optional paperwork. It's part of a larger strategy to optimize city growth. For homeowners, understanding this broader context is important. A vacant property isn't just a private decision anymore. It affects neighborhood vibrancy, local businesses, and infrastructure planning. If you plan to leave a home unused, consider short-term leasing, long-term tenants, or documented exemptions. Keep proof of occupancy periods and stay ahead of compliance rules. In 2026, cities are not just expanding outward, they're intensifying inward, and unused housing stands out. Do you think cities should influence how private homes are used in dense areas? Share your thoughts below, and if you appreciate deep, balanced analysis like this, subscribe. One click helps us keep producing high-effort content. Number 8. Neighborhood stability. In many communities, long-term vacant homes do more than sit quietly. They slowly change the atmosphere of the entire neighborhood. Research in urban development has shown that prolonged vacancy can lead to visible decline, overgrown lawns, deferred maintenance, and reduced street activity. When multiple properties in one area remain empty, It can affect local businesses, property values, and even perceptions of safety. A home without lights at night or cars in the driveway sends a subtle signal that no one is there. Because of these ripple effects, policymakers argue that vacancy isn't just a personal matter. It has community consequences. Municipal governments often link vacancy taxes to neighborhood preservation goals. The idea is simple: encourage occupancy to maintain stable, active communities. When homes are lived in, they contribute to local economies, schools, and social networks. The strict penalties attached to non-reporting reinforce that leaving a property in use for extended periods is something authorities want to monitor closely. The 300% fine is designed to prevent people from quietly ignoring the rules while neighborhoods absorb the impact. For property owners, this means thinking beyond the walls of the house itself. If you're holding a property long-term without tenants, consider the broader effects. Maintain the exterior carefully, keep utilities active where required, and ensure you understand local vacancy declarations. Documentation and transparency are critical. In 2026, vacant properties don't just carry financial risk, they can draw attention in ways owners may not expect. Do you believe vacant homes truly harm neighborhoods, or is that overstated? Comment your view below, and if this analysis adds value to you, subscribe. One click supports the effort behind every video. Number 9. Political pressure. In 2026, housing affordability remains one of the most emotionally charged political issues in Canada. When rents rise and homeownership feels out of reach, voters demand action. Politicians respond with policies that show they are tackling the crisis head-on. Vacancy taxes and strict reporting rules are highly visible measures. They signal to the public that the government is not ignoring empty homes while families struggle to find housing. Whether the impact is large or small, the optics matter in a heated political climate. As public frustration grows, pressure builds for stronger enforcement. Lawmakers know that weak penalties would make the policy look symbolic rather than serious. That's one reason the fines for noncompliance can reach as high as 300% of the tax owed. It creates a message: ignoring the system is not an option. In many cases, these measures are passed after intense debate, public consultations, and media coverage highlighting vacant luxury properties. Political momentum turns housing policy into a powerful campaign issue. For homeowners, this means understanding that housing rules can change quickly depending on election cycles and public sentiment. What seems like a minor reporting requirement today could become stricter tomorrow. Stay informed during federal and municipal elections. Review new housing proposals carefully. If you own property, political decisions can directly affect your finances. In today's environment, real estate is not just a market asset, it's part of a national conversation. Do you think vacancy penalties are driven more by politics than policy results? Share your honest opinion below, and if you value balanced breakdowns like this, subscribe. One click helps us continue producing research-backed content. Number 10. The one-year filing trap. Here's where most people get caught. It's not always the empty home itself that triggers the massive penalty, it's the missed filing. In 2026, many property owners assume that if they don't owe any tax, they don't need to submit anything. That assumption can be extremely costly. Certain owners, especially those holding property through corporations, trusts, or partnerships, must file an annual return even if the property was occupied or qualifies for exemption. Skip that step, and the penalty can multiply fast, in some cases reaching up to 300% of the tax assessed. What makes this a true trap is timing. The rule often applies after just 1 year of ownership or one reporting cycle. You might inherit a property, move temporarily for work, or restructure ownership for estate planning, and suddenly you're in a category that requires filing. There's no dramatic warning, no reminder call, just a deadline quietly passing. By the time the notice arrives, the fine may already be locked in. Many people discover the issue months later when reviewing paperwork or speaking to an accountant. The safest approach is simple but disciplined. Confirm how your property is legally titled. Check whether your ownership structure triggers reporting requirements. Mark annual deadlines on your calendar well in advance. Even if you believe you qualify for a full exemption, file anyway if required. In today's regulatory system, paperwork mistakes are often more expensive than the tax itself. Did you know missing a form could cost more than the tax? Comment trap if this surprised you, and subscribe with one click to help us keep uncovering the fine print that others miss. As we've seen, the so-called 300% empty home penalty isn't just about leaving a house vacant. It's about a much bigger system: housing shortages, speculative investing, foreign ownership concerns, rental supply pressure, government revenue, data tracking, urban planning, neighborhood stability, political momentum, and most importantly, the one-year filing trap. In 2026, property ownership in Canada is no longer passive. It requires awareness, attention to detail, and strict compliance with reporting rules that many people still don't fully understand. The reality is this: most penalties don't hit because someone tried to break the law. They happen because someone assumed they were exempt. They happen because a form wasn't filed. They happen because ownership was structured through a corporation or trust without realizing it triggered new obligations. And by the time the letter arrives, the fine can feel shocking and unfair. But in today's housing climate, ignorance is expensive. The system is designed to enforce compliance, not remind you gently. So the real takeaway is simple but powerful: stay informed, stay organized, and never ignore reporting requirements. If you own property, treat annual housing declarations with the same seriousness as income taxes. One missed deadline can undo years of careful financial planning. Whether you agree with the policy or not, understanding it protects you. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think this one-year trap is fair, or is it government overreach? Share your thoughts below. If this breakdown helped you see the bigger picture, watch our previous video and support the channel. We put serious effort into every deep dive. Subscribe, it's just one click, and it helps us keep exposing what others overlook.